Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to part 2 of my 30-day update on my piano progress. As you can see here, I have moved beyond just playing, what are honestly rather boring exercises. I think they're very important. I'm trying to build a foundation here, and based upon my prior experience learning instruments, trumpet and bass, it seems like you got to put the time in, you got to learn those things beforehand, and it does pay off in the long run. But that being said, you can't practice that stuff forever. If you want to make progress, you got to move on at some point. So, as you can see, I have moved on to playing some chords and some actual music. Now, a point kind of related to that I wanted to just discuss briefly for you guys is, I had a comment and somebody said they actually complimented me on, the rate of my progress. And if I'm quite honest with you guys, I'm actually really surprised how quickly I'm progressing. I thought this was going to be a much slower journey. Doesn't mean I'm not going to hit a brick wall in a couple weeks, or in plateau for a while. Certainly possible. That being said, though, the important thing to remember, if let's say you're watching this series and you're a beginner as well, and you feel like you're not making nearly as quick progress as I am, or maybe some other people that you're watching, here's what you need to keep in mind. Number one, as I mentioned in part 1 of this episode, I'm practicing 2 hours a day, and that's a lot of time. Not everybody has that time to practice, and I understand that, but just practice as much as you can, obviously. But if you're not practicing, if you're only practicing 15 minutes a day, no matter what your background is, you're not going to make as quick a progress as someone who's practicing a lot more than that. Second point, though, is that you need to keep in mind, we're talking about foundation here. I've got a musical foundation that's we're talking over 10 years, 10 plus years of experience, and there's so many things I've learned in those 10 years, a lot of music theory. So for me, chords are pretty easy because I can think in my head already what notes make up a chord, and then it's just a matter of finding them on this instrument. And as far as rhythm goes, being able to swing, all kinds of things, I've got a lot of that musical stuff just internalized inside of me, so it's a lot easier for me it's already been developed, and I just have to be able to translate it to this particular instrument. Whereas if you're very new, you don't have that type of experience, you may find yourself having a much harder time with just simple rhythms or chords and that type of understanding that I've already put the time in. Pretty much what I'm trying to say here is no matter what, we all have to put the time in at some point in time. Even these tremendous musicians you see on TV, YouTube, whatever, that are just unbelievably talented at their instrument, which, talent, I guess, has something to do with it, but they all put the time in, and that's, you don't see that on TV. You just see the end result. So just keep that in mind as you guys go. That's a little word of encouragement for you guys. We've all put the time in. I've put the time in, but it's been over years, and even though I've only been playing piano for a month, there's just a lot of foundation that's been built up prior that's, I think, really fueling and acting as a catalyst for my progress here. So that's what I have to say about that. So hopefully you guys found that somewhat insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring in the best case scenario. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the songs I've been working on. And I think something that just kind of became apparent to me is that now that I start learning these songs and I start adding chords and stuff, you're really going to see where I'm drawing on musical knowledge that I already have, and that's really what's helping me to learn this stuff really quickly. And it just is too much for me, at least in one video, to show you what I've done, but also explain all of it. So I'm kind of just, for this video, I think I'm just going to show you what I did, maybe explain a little bit about it. But as far as the theory behind it goes, that's something I might explore in the future as maybe another series where we can just discuss some basic theory, because that's all it is. We're talking about triads here, right? That's just a A triad, that's a B triad, or a G triad. That's an F triad in the first inversion, So you guys get the idea. Perhaps that would be, obviously it's very useful to me, so I'm sure it could be very useful to some of you guys as well, but it's just beyond the scope of this particular series. Anyhow, let me show you the first song I've been working on. I'll play it for you first, and then I'll say a few words about it. you guys know the song. You're probably either going to subscribe because of that or possibly even unsubscribe, because that's the type of song people either love it or they hate it. But I was at a jam with my friends the other night and they started playing it, and I asked them the chords to it, and so they told me the chords, and as it turns out, they're relatively simple chords, and it works out that there's a way you can play the song, which is the way I figured out, where there's no sideways movement required in your hands at all. You can find all the notes of every chord, well, not all of them, but you can find enough notes from every chord that you never have to move your hand to play the song. So I just figured out what those notes were, and then I just started playing them and getting that practice under my hands of doing two different things at once. Rhythmically, we're not doing anything different except for this part. But it's actually, as it turns out, I think it's actually a pretty cool exercise for very elementary levels of hand independence. So I practiced that, and that's pretty much where I'm at. I did move it up a little for, you know, some more excitement. It sounds cool up there, but that's really as far as I've gotten with that song. The other song I got going on is, you guys heard it at the beginning, and it's a disco tune. Let me show you what I got here. So that's like the chorus. Here's the verse. We'll just go back to the verse. Got a little bit tripped up there, but that's okay. These videos are supposed to be showing progress, so next time you guys see me play that song, hopefully I won't make those mistakes. And here's what I'll say about that song. Number one, we got triad practice going on. The actual song has dominant seventh chords and some other stuff going on, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just playing triads here. Triads. And so I'm getting practice with root position triads. The next two chords, I'm playing first inversions. So we got that going on. And kind of related to what we learned with the last song, I'm playing the chords and the inversions of the chords such that there's still not a huge amount of lateral movement required. You know, if you wanted to play them all in root position, which I think I could actually do now from practicing it. Here you go. Yeah. That last one was incorrect, but see, there's a lot more movement that could be happening. But thanks to the inversions, you can kind of keep it in the same spot. I practice that a lot with that hand, and then in the other hand, it's similar. Actually, the first two chords are identical. We're still playing triads, but for the second two, it gets a little muddy if we were to try and play that inversion. That doesn't sound very good. So instead, we're just playing root and fifth. Not really root, because it's actually a F over G chord, but the bottom note of the chord and a fifth above it for the last two. So same thing. And this hand actually gets you practicing a little bit more sideways movement, where you have to go down to that D and A, and then shift up to the G and the D. And obviously you have to, you know, have consistent hand spacing in order for that to happen. Then in the verse, you may have noticed I'm playing these octaves now. I've been practicing that a lot because from just watching piano videos, it seems to me like that's a very common thing that's done in the left hand. So I'm trying to get a head start on getting, you know, some practice with that. Octaves that are next to each other are pretty easy, but at least for me, as soon as I try to shift to make a jump like this, that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. So, when we get into the verse, and just a similar point I'll just make real quick. It's an A major, then it's E minor. So I found an inversion. I have the E already here, so I found an inversion that's right next to it. Right, and then we go to that D inversion again. So when I start playing that verse, that's where I start getting into these octaves. And we're really talking about hand independence now, where we're making these big jumps in the right hand. That's all I have to say about that, guys. You know, I want to try and figure out the best way to show you guys what I'm doing here without it being a lesson on the particular songs. So if you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up and let me know if this was helpful. If not, consider not giving me a thumbs down, but leave me a comment and let me know what you didn't like about it and maybe how it could be better. And obviously, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.